We got a variable here with the y, and we got equals, and you'll notice that we have a variable on both sides. There's a y there, and I probably should have chosen a different color. We got a y there, and we got a y there. We got one on each side of the equation, and we got to solve that, but we got to get rid of the denominator first, and so you should be looking at the denominators here. We got a 5 and we got a 5, but hopefully you recognize that I only have a fraction on 2 of my terms, that there's a term that's missing a fraction. So I want you to go ahead and put a 1 underneath that so we see them all as fractions. And now it's time to find the lowest common multiple of the denominator. So we have a 5, a 1, and a 5. Those are our 3 denominators. And hopefully finding the lowest common multiple here isn't too challenging, because the first multiple of 5 is a 5, and they all go into 5 evenly. So that's what we're going to multiply everything by. So I'm going to put a 5 right there. I'm going to put a 5 by this. Please don't forget to put it by the 1. And then I'm going to put a 5 on the last term as well. And now it's time to start reducing. So we're going to cross the 5s off, right? They turn into 1s. And now it's time to reduce these. So 5 divided into 5, this should turn into a 1. 1 into 5 is just 5. I'm not going to cross anything off. I'm just going to leave it alone. And this 5 also turns into a 1. And now it is time to multiply what we got. You see I have a 1 times 2 times y. And then 1 times 2 is 2. That makes 2y, and then my equal sign. And 1 times 5 is 5. Plus, and then you see this as should be 3 times 1, which is 3, times y. So that's 3y. And this is all we're looking at. Hopefully you recognize also, now that I'm into just an equation with a variable on both sides, that this number is the only number in the equation. This is a variable term. The 2y is a variable term, and the 3y is as well. So even though 2y is smaller, and we've always taught to move 2y, because this number is already here by itself, let's get rid of the 3y. It'll make it one less step. So we'll take away the 3y on both sides, and if you want to divide your halves of fraction of the equations, you can. 2y take away 3y, that's a negative 1. Y. And then all that's left, this crosses, and that's just a 5. And your last step is to divide both sides by a negative 1, because we got to make the negative 1 go away. The negatives turn into a positive right there. And a positive divided by a negative, you guessed it, it's a negative 5. So there's our solution for this first problem. Let's go to number 2. This is got 4 terms now, and we've got a term there. I've got a plus 3/2, I've got a 3/5, and a plus 2. There's 4 terms there, and that means I need 4 fractions. How many fractions do you see? I see 1, I see 2, I see 3. So let's make that one a 4. That's our 4th fraction. And now it's time to come up with a common multiple for the denominator. So I've got 3 numbers to choose from here. I got a 10, a 2, and a 5. We don't really need to look at the multiples for like a 1, because 1 goes into anything. What's the smallest number that all 3 of these numbers can go into? Well, start with the biggest number. You know, its multiples are 10, 20, 30. And then ask yourself, can the 2 go into 10? Yeah. Can the 5 go into 10? Yeah. So that makes that our lowest common multiple. And that's what we're going to multiply by. So I'm going to put that in parentheses, a 10, next to every term. There's a 10 there. There's a 10 there. And then a 10 at the end. So there's 4 10s, right? 4 terms, 4 10s. Time to cross off our denominator. So I'm going to cross off 10, 2, 5. The 1 is just a 1. These numbers turn into 1s. And now you got to divide. How many times does 10 go into 10? Here, 10. This 10 goes into this 10 once. This 2 goes into this 10 5 times. This 5 goes into this 10 twice. And 1 into 10 is just 10. I'm going to leave that alone. And I'm going to highlight in blue what we have left. I have a 1, a 7, and an N. And then next, I have what looks to be a 3 and a 5. And then on the other side, I have a 3, a 2, and an N. And the last one, I have a 2 and a 10. Those things all have to get multiplied together to be each of their own terms. 1 times 7 is 7 times n is 7n plus, and then I have 3 times 5, that's 15. Over here I have 3 times 2 times n. 3 times 2 is 6. So 6n plus 20. And this answer is actually not going to work out with a fraction. We're going to get a whole number. Now we just go back to what we did in the last lesson. Move the smallest variable. The smallest variable between 7n and 6n is that one, so we'll take it away. Minus a 6n there and there. And then simplify it down. 7 take away 6 is 1n. Plus 15 equals 20. And then we go ahead and take away a 15 on both sides. That's our last step, because this is just 1n. 1n equals 5. And I can even just box through the 1, because we don't usually write a 1, just n equals 5. That's fine. Let's take a look at the next one. At any point, you guys can back this video up and watch anything we're doing. You'll notice that I have 2 terms here that don't even have a fraction. So let's fix that. Put a 1 under both of those. There's a 1 there and a 1 there. And now I've got a 7, a 1, a 7, and a 1. So the lowest common multiple should be really simple to figure out on this one, because when you have a 7 and a 1, I said just start with the 7, right? Because 1 goes into it. So we're going to multiply everything by a 7, and that's going to clear our fractions. So I'll put a 7 in parentheses next to all 4 terms. And now it's time to figure out what we got. So the 7 goes into 7 one time. So those reduce to 1s. 1, and that doesn't reduce the second one, doesn't reduce the third one, does though. That 7 and that 7 both turn into 1s. And the last one is going to be just a 28 when I multiply 4 times 7. So this first term is 1 times 1 times k. That's just k. And then you see minus, and then 6 times 7 is 42. Equals. And this is my other variable term, 3 times 1 times k. So 3 times 1 is 3, times k is 3k, plus 28. And my next step is now back down to old school equation strategy 101. Move the smallest variable first. That's a 1k, and that's what we're going to get rid of. We're going to move 1k. So take away 1k there, and take away 1k there. That's going to be our first step. And let's cross that off. And I've still got a negative 42. So don't forget the negative sign. Negative 42 equals. That's 3k, take away 1k. So let's do the math real quick. That looks like going to be 2k plus 28. And now you're going to have to be decent with your negatives, because we're going to remember, cover your variable up, take your finger and put it over there. Don't move it. Get rid of the thing next to it, which is this 28. So I'm going to take it away. And a negative 42 and a negative 28, they're both negative. So we just add them up. And that's going to be a negative 70. And my last step is to divide by 2. And k, I'm going to turn it around at this point, is negative 35, because that's a negative number divided by a positive number. And that's the third problem. So hopefully this stuff is starting to sink in. We always want to be looking at 4 or 3 fractions, whatever it is, the number of terms in our equation. This one's got 4 terms. You know, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, and we only have 3 fractions. So take that 1 and put a 1 underneath it. And now look at the numbers we're looking at. 6, 1, 2, and 4. Those are our denominators. 6, 1, 2, and 4. Let's start with the biggest one and list out a couple multiples. We got 6, we got 12, and we got 18. Well, 1 goes into all of them. 2 goes into all of them because they're all even. So let's find the smallest one a 4 goes into. 4 doesn't go into 6. 4 does not do that. 4 goes into that one, though. That one's good. So we're going to multiply everything by 12. So let's put a parentheses and a 12 next to all the terms. And now, time to reduce. We're going to cross the 6 off. 1. And 6 into 12 twice. 1 and 12 don't touch, but 2. Cross the 2 off, put a 1. And 2 goes into 12 6 times. And 4 put a 1, and 4 goes into 12 3 times. And now we just got to multiply what's left. So I see a 2, a 5, and a y. 2 times 5 is 10. That's 10y plus 12, right? 1 times 12 equals, there's a negative sign there, don't lose it, negative, and then 1 times 6 times y. So negative 6y plus, and then 1 times 3 is 3. And now some good old-fashioned equation solving. Move the smallest variable first. The smallest one is not the positive one, so we're going to move negative 6y. So let's add a 6y right there. Add a 6y underneath. Right? Line the y terms up. These go away. That's 16y plus 12. And that equals 3. That's all that's left over there. And now let's cover up, right? We're going to cover up our variable term. Don't touch the variable term. Move the 12. Take it away on both sides. 3 take away 12. Hopefully some of these integer skills are coming back a little bit. 3 take away 12 is a negative number. The 12 is bigger by 9. So it's negative 9. And that is 16y. And the last thing we're going to do is divide by that 16. So we just put a fraction down there and we're moving on. So y on this problem is negative 9 over 16. That should be good enough, and you should be okay to try and solve the rest of your problems on this assignment.